Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. It's Thursday night live, and interesting topic tonight. We're going to talk about Cardiff City's away form. Is it a concern? Is it a worry? Because there's a few of you been in the comments and texting me and stuff saying you think it is. We're going to discuss that, and we'll also discuss some other statistics and things that we've been looking at over the season. But before we get to that, of course, as it's a Thursday, I am joined by Mr. Jamie Anderson. Welcome back, mate. Hope you're good.
All good, mate. Just a bit tired. Long days and long shifts in work. But yeah, it's good to have a chat again about all things football.
That's it, mate. Got to do those long shifts, mate, so you can go home and away, innit? That's the thing.
Yeah.
But so early start for you Saturday morning. Looking forward to it?
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to the fact that there's 2,000 plus Cardiff fans going up. Again, I know people talk about it. It's 12 on Sky, and a lot of fans will go, "Oh, I thought you were this," and you see all the whole thing. But 2,000 fans is not cheap to go up to Bradford. Especially if you're going on a train like we are. But it's a big game, isn't it? It feels like another cup final, and one that you feel like we have to get a positive result from, just to keep building some bit of, some sort of momentum, just to keep both sides away from us.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one for me. I was just saying to you just before we started, I actually quite fancy us, and I'll kind of get into why later, but I'm really fascinated by it because everybody talks about the first game. And look, we were both there, and we saw it. I don't think it felt like a 3-1 game on the day, but I thought Bradford were worth their victory. However, it does seem to have been repainted in Cardiff fans' eyes a little bit as like they came to our place and absolutely outplayed us and just gave us an absolute pasting. And I rewatched it last night for the video, which I put out earlier. And it really wasn't that. It was end to end. We missed a lot of chances. We missed chances at 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, and obviously missed some at 3-0, 3-1. And we made mistakes. And I know Gabe Osho is almost everyone's favourite defender to blame for certain things. He didn't have his best game, and he gives away a penalty. But I actually defend him on the penalty because they kind of work it down the right, and the wing is going to side foot it across, and there'll be a tap in. He has to fully commit because he's sort of behind him, and he goes to block the cross. He throws himself into it. And if he crosses it and he blocks it, everyone's saying, "What a great challenge!" But the wing is clever. He sees him coming, he chops it back, and it's a stone cold penalty. But we got done by a corner again, which is obviously been an ongoing issue. Frustratingly, it was exactly the same corner that I think Doncaster scored against us, where they load up the box and then just pull it to the edge of the box, and we don't get out quick enough. And then their third goal was on transition, which that seemed to be where they caused us a lot of problems. And what they did very well was they knocked it into the centre forward, and then he knocked it round the corner first time behind either Bagan or Kepaki out on the other side. And they got in behind us a lot. At that point in the season, we were conceding, it felt like on average, 15 to 20 shots a game. A lot of that was, I think, down to how open we were and obviously getting taken apart on the transition. I don't think we are that now. I think that's been addressed, and you only got to look at the sort of match stats and the shots that we'd have conceded in probably the last 10 games. They're nowhere near that, generally. So that gives me hope. But don't get me wrong, on the other side of it, Bradford, I thought, were very good. I really like Neuville, who scored the third goal. And I think they got some good attacking players, particularly, and they defended their box really well. But we missed a lot of chances. But what did you do from memory? And I don't know if you've rewatched this or whatever, but what did you make of that first game?
It was, like you said, I think probably the start of our season. I think we were way too open. It was very much like a volleyball tennis match where you're back and forth. And I think, it sounded daft, but even the slightest things like winning the toss, that was a big thing afterwards. People said, wow, that probably did work in their favour. We were way too open. And like you said, especially at the start of the season where we were conceding quite a lot of chances because on the transition, we were exposed. And I think Leyton Orient showed that as well. And there was a few sides that didn't give us that respect that maybe other teams did. And I think it put a bit of a template down to the league, didn't it? To say, hang on a minute, you can probably get at Cardiff, especially their young players, if you kind of be resolute to the back and then hold someone higher up the pitch on the counter. And they didn't, one of the goals was a cracking goal. And, like you said, they were deserved winners on the day. Max Power did what you'd almost call the darker arts. He knew when to slow the game down, when to speed it up. And I thought he did a job on, some of our midfielders. Callum Robinson had a few chances, didn't he, in the game? And as the longer the game went on, you felt like we were just going to we just weren't going to get a result. And, you credit to them. Credit them for that day. But listen, it'll be a completely different game. They've got new faces. They've got injuries. At their place, it's their cup final at the minute. It's going to be a packed house, something that probably our youngsters are going to have to manage quite well, because we can't be, sort of affected by the crowd noise. And we're going to have to manage the game appropriately. I think at times, like you said, we've kind of gone a bit opposite to what we were at the start of the season. We've kind of shored up the back a little bit more, kind of probably taken our fluency away to an extent, just because we need to be mindful of the transition. But like we saw at Leyton Orient and other away games, we can be exposed, but I think that's probably more down to our errors, trying to play out when it's not needed, maybe not managing the games when we probably should, like, let's say Nathan Trotter should go down and take a bit of sting out of the play. But listen, we aren't going to win every game, but these are the games which, naturally, because they're so close to us, will get overanalyzed. Our emotions will be heightened because of every little thing that will go on during the game. Like I said, I think we just got to be the best version of ourselves, and we've just got to, almost, like you say, win the basics. Don't concede from set pieces. Be strong in defence. Impose yourself in all areas, and hopefully then we're the side that are coming away with a 3-1 victory.
Yeah, I think on that, them doing a job on our midfield, one of the things that Brian Barry Murphy mentioned in his post-match presser in that was how we gave away a lot of silly fouls in the second half, which meant that the game was constantly being stopped. And then, those are learning curves for young players, aren't they? And I think, on Saturday, I expect Bradford will start very fast. I think they will try to do to us what Leyton Orient did at the start of the game last week, where they'll start fast. They'll probably press quite high, put us under pressure at the back and try and force mistakes. And then we've got to have that composure to keep the ball and almost quieten the crowd down a little bit in the first 10, 15 minutes. And then you'd sort of hope that your quality will shine through as the game progresses. I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine who works within media and TV and stuff this week. And he was saying that he thinks, as good as Amari Kellyman has been since he moved into the 10, he said he thinks we're really missing Ruben away from home. And I hadn't really thought, like, I obviously know I think we miss Ruben, because I think he's the kingpin and he's the kind of like the linchpin of this team under Brian Barry Murphy. But when you think about the away games, he does give you physicality. He does give you that sort of ball carrying ability, and that it's those players, I guess, which can just do something out of nothing. Whether it's a free kick or whatever, like a little cheeky pass. I don't know. Where do you stand with that? Do you think we have missed him since he's been out?
Yeah, I mean, Kellerman, especially at home, has been unbelievable in the number 10, because he's got that free roam. And I think our wingers kind of, they cross over, don't they? And I think they're all in good tune. But when you go away from home, I know people say about pitch sizes and grounds and so on. I just think that people don't give us as much respect, maybe, that, like you said, credit to Leyton Orient on the weekend. Ballard was going to run, his knackers off all game. And I think sides know that we have a tendency to play out from the back. So they're quite happy to commit 3 people to press and to stop us playing. We have got injuries. So naturally, we've got to look at that. But Colwill, what I like about him this year is I think he's learned how to put his body in the right places, like you said, to shield the ball a bit better. Because in years gone by, we know he's got the size. But he's not necessarily had, he's not been able to back into players. He's not been able to use the shoulder maybe as well as he could have. But he has done that. Kellerman's a completely different player. He's in a slimmer stature, isn't he? He's not as musty as him, but he does probably in the shorter spaces. He's brilliant, isn't he? He can link up. And my biggest thing is, I feel like, especially at Leyton Orient on Saturday, for the first 20 minutes, Salek was very exposed. And I feel like we need to get closer to him, and the players need to get closer to him if at all possible, because otherwise the ball's going to keep coming back. And I think maybe these are things I'm no manager or professor to know anything, a lot about football, but you can see it, can't you, from the eye test when he gets frustrated because he's trying his hardest to hold things up. And if your number 10's nowhere near you, or your midfielders are nowhere near you, unfortunately, he's not going to be able to score a goal like he did on the weekend every chance he gets the ball, is he?
No, and I think just on Ruben as well, one of the things which Ruben did very well at the start of the season was knowing when to be close to Saleh to link up off those little layoffs and then play off one touch, which, as like you say, Kellyman's a different player. And I think what I like about Kellyman is his first thought is to drive at the centre-backs and kind of expose the opposition, and he wins a lot of free kicks. Now, both of them are out at the weekend. You mentioned Bradford got some injuries and they brought some players in. We haven't brought anyone in, and we've got a few injury concerns. Obviously, Kellyman and Colwell are out. Chambers is struggling. Capaccio is struggling. I feel like there was one more as well, but I can't remember who it was. But I saw a lot of people calling for Callum Robinson in the 10. I think, and I'm not a manager. It's not up to me. I think that's a massive risk against this team just because of the way they play. We just talked about how much freedom and how much joy they got from the transition. And I think playing two strikers against them could almost be, creating your own problems. But I also think that Callum Robinson has a knack of being in the right place at the right time. But yeah, I don't know. What would you think you would like to see in terms of that sort of additional spot in the team now because of Kellyman's out?
I think whoever the 10's going to be, like I just mentioned there, it's an important role because you need to be close to Salek. You need to be up with him because, like I said, when someone's in and around him, he wins those flick-ons. Again, I'll allude to Leyton Orient on Saturday. Ballard was very close to Lloyd. They were very entwined, so they were even if he got a flick on, a little touch around the edge, that created those problems. Someone just mentioned there about Willock. I mean, I wouldn't be against Willock being in there. I think he probably would. He'd probably be able to have that composure and that link-up play. I think would be good. With Willock, I think at times maybe people have looked at maybe his apparent lack of, let's say, speed going on both sides of the ball, going forward and defensively. You don't necessarily need that when you're in the centre of the pitch. You've got that different type of focus, so that could be an option. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because if you play Robinson, you're not going to get a Stevenage goal every moment to you. So they have to be confident. They have to be in tune because otherwise he's just going to be, he'd be a spare man, won't he? And if a big physical centre half is going to be stuck tight to him, then you're playing the wrong person because that's not his game. His game is probably in and around that 18-yard box, taking a touch and smacking it towards goal. So, yeah, I mean, Willock could be an option. But again, unfortunately, we went through a period of having no injuries. Now we've got a few key injuries. So whether you move Alex Robertson higher at the pitch or do we do like we did at Wickham? Interest that Joel Colwell, I think Brian Barry Murphy mentioned about him buying his time and being on the same page with that in his press conference today. Give him another opportunity. I know he was kicking himself after the Wickham game, but he still got in those positions. So could be Joel Colwell. He's got a bit of height as well. Put him in there. Why not? And he's going to give you 110% effort and he'll get back, he'll go forward and he'll go back.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, I wouldn't move Alex Robertson further forward. I think that would be a mistake just because he's been so good where he is.
Yep.
I quite like the idea of Willock in there. Or
Yep.
Kean. I think Kean Ashford would be a shout because he'll work his absolute knackers off a bit like Joel. And that's his position at the end of the day. But he doesn't get that much opportunity to do it at first team level. And I think he's very clever with his movement off the ball, both for himself and for others, which could be interesting. I actually think we won't play a 10. I think we will go with more of a 4-3-3, which he did when Kellyman came off on the weekend. He went with Turnbull. I would go with Joel and Alex with Wintle in the middle of them and tell, one of them to be slightly more aggressive. I mean, Robertson looks to get forward anyway. So, but what you don't want, like you say, is Salic to be isolated. And then if you have, say, Tanner on one side and you tell him to hug the touchline a little bit, maybe you go with Willock on the left and tell him to drift in a little bit and maybe, support Salic that way. I don't know. I just, the manager will obviously have a few ideas, I would imagine, in different ways to do it. I think Joel Colwell in the 10 is an option. I think he looked better earlier in the season when he was playing as like a box-to-box midfielder rather than being the one receiving it in tight spaces. But that's also, I think, very difficult for a young player to do unless you've got the technical ability of, like a Kellyman who's got such quick feet. He's used to that, almost like the futsal style of player. Like they're so quick and they're used to having no room. And outside the box thinking there, like Paul's just said, Isaac in there. I think for me, and this is only my personal opinion, right? I said for a while, I would love to see Isaac play off Salic. I think they're pressing together and they're like Isaac gambling on flick-ons and stuff would be great. However, I think the only way it would happen is if we had a change of system and we went like 3 at the back or 4-4. I just don't see us going like an old school 4-4-2. And I think the manager will have one eye on that, where did they hurt us in the first game? I know it's going to be a different game and they'll probably be a bit more front foot as well because it's a home game for them. But I think it would be naive to go, right, let's go 4-4-2 against the one team which probably completely outplayed us over 90 minutes.
Yeah, I think that the battle of the sixes, I think I've called it this week with my mates, have said, because you've got Wintle there who, will help that back four, sits in front of it, sweeps up and tries to, what we saw Wickham. He's able to, find those passes, which we will need in transition especially. But Max Power, I think, we've kind of got to keep him quiet as well, because if we give him too much of a say in the game, if he's able to slow things down, if he's able to almost dictate and narrate the game, we'll be in for a long day because, again, he is experienced. That's the reason why they've got, they got him in from Wigan. I think Valley Parade, it's never going to be an easy place to go to, and especially when it's bouncing and, it is quite an iconic ground, isn't it? With a history and things like that behind it. It's got the recipe for a proper tie, a proper League One game, which could be scrappy. But whatever you do, you've got to have a plan to counter it, haven't you? And I think, they've got a very experienced manager in Graham Alexander, sorry, and he knows, like I said, the dark arts of the games that you might need it, and whether that's doubling up on the striker or whether that's kind of going down in at a certain time. That'll be tricky. But I love Isaac Davis. I think Isaac Davis, like Paul said there, he's someone who's going to give his all. He's going to run, and like we saw against Leyton Orient, he came on and he just straight away down that right-hand side. Would it be nice to see him playing as a 10? Who knows? But we've got to have energy. We've got to have passion. We've got to have all those things. And then hopefully that gives you a good foundation then to win a game. Because, again, we're not going to go there for just a point. I don't think any manager would do that. But again, it's a tricky one because Bradford have recruited recently. We haven't. So you've got, is it Ashby, I think, or someone else from Newcastle, I think they've got. So, there's a couple of players there they've got. Thankfully, Ethan Wheatley doesn't look like he's playing. I think he's injured. So yeah, it's gonna be tricky. Humphreys, I think he's a winger / striker for them. He's a handful as well. So listen, they are where they are by merit. I feel we are where we are by merit. So it's going to be a good game for the Sky cameras, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely will. And I mean, just on Max Power as well, I agree with you. He was a big part of their game in the first game, which is another thing which over the years we've seen Ruben do quite well, is sit on that number 6 when he's played in the 10. So I wonder whether he goes, if he doesn't go with like a 4-3-3 and he does go with an actual 10, maybe you go with a Kean Ashford or someone like that who's going to, or Joel Colwell, who is going to do that disciplined sort of defensive side, as well as look to be in different areas and make it an interesting game. But I will see. We'll come back to the game, mate, a bit later on. So there's been some talk over the last probably a couple of weeks, in fairness, and I've had a few messages and texts and comments and stuff saying that people are concerned about our away form. So I went and had a look, and we're going to talk about it now, as well as some other stats. But we've had 5 wins away from home, 3 losses and 4 draws, which I don't think is that bad. Now, obviously, in the last 5 games, we have we've won 2, lost 1, and drawn 2, which again, not that bad, really, But I think it's those last 3, isn't it, where you lost to Lincoln. Wickham was a game which I think most people feel we should have won, where we dominated and we started so well, and we missed 2 big chances in that game with the Robinson and the Joel Colwell one. And then Leyton Orient, I think, kind of was what it was. It was a chaotic game. But I'm of the opinion that you win your home games, and away from home, just try... you try and win, obviously, but if you can make sure you don't lose more often than not, then you're going to be all right. But I understand people's apprehension, because obviously we all through the season, I don't think we've been particularly fluid away from home. But then is that naive of us as fans to think that we're going to go away and play like we play at home? Because ultimately not many teams do that, because it's League One, isn't it? It's, when you go to someone else's gaff, they're gonna make it hard. They're gonna be physical, and they're gonna be in your face. So yeah, where do you stand with the away form?
Listen, I think where we've done so well at home, often I think maybe we look at it and go, hopefully we can replicate that away from home. That probably doesn't happen. I think, when I looked on FOTMob earlier, I think we're like 1.5, averaging 1.5 or something points away from home, per game. The last few games, if you take the last 3, then, so we look at the 2 draws and the loss at Lincoln, we played well for 20 minutes after halftime, didn't we? But overall, we didn't do enough. You take that on the chin and you go, okay, we'll learn from it. Wickham, we should have been out of sight. We should, if Joel scores that chance, and I think he's been, the first person to say that, he should have done better. But there would have been 2-0 up, and we would have probably went on and hammered them. But naturally, when it's only 1-0, we concede a poor goal, again off a set piece, then you're up against it, aren't you? So it gives our team that bit of hope. And then Saturday, again, it's not as if we were undone and we were hammered or anything like that. I think we gave them the goal. We probably all had a feeling at some point that through Trott's excellence and composure, maybe at some time he was going to get caught out, and it did. And Ballard is tenacious. He's a good little striker, and we showed a bit of character then to come back, showed a good effort. And listen, it's never going to be easy from away from home. I think League One is a very, very tough league, and it's right. It's physical. It's full of people who are experienced, and we haven't got the most experienced squad. So it's tough. It is tough. But I think, again, we go in little cycles, don't we, where we start like stutter for a few games, then all of a sudden we look like, wow, like, oh my goodness, we're back again. And again, it's just getting points on the board, no matter how it comes, get those points on the board, keep climbing, keep at the top of the table, and hope that come what may, we're there with a League One trophy in hand, ready to go back into the Championship.
Yeah, and as Jonathan just said there, we have the second best away record in the league. So I get it. Like it's the Lincoln loss where we were poor, and then it's the not taking your chances at Wickham, and then the Leyton Orient game was what it was. It was kind of, like I said, very chaotic. So I do get that people it's recency bias, isn't it, where people are a bit like, oh, we haven't won for 3 games away from home. But actually, when you look at the context of it individually, we've reacted pretty well to every time we've lost this year. We've reacted well as a team, or when we've had a poor performance. In my opinion, the worst performance of the season was the second half versus Blackpool. I thought that was horrific, and I don't quite know what we were trying to do. But
yeah, but we had that.
Apart from that,
it goes in phases, doesn't it? Because again, that, first half should have battered them. If it wasn't for keeper's excellency, we would have. Don't take your chances. The other team still has that hope, and then bang. I'll be the first one to admit at the time I was seething at there, going, but you take that emotion out of it, and you go, actually, it wasn't probably a bad performance. It was just defensive structural errors that led to those 3 poor goals. Then we show some character, and we go, okay, well, we win the next away game then at Northampton by hook by crook. We go and win that, and you think, okay, it's no problem. But then again, we get a tough result. We managed to beat Stevenage away. So you think, oh, we're building something here again. But then one loss, and I suppose again, because it was against Lincoln, who are obviously second in the league, naturally you want to beat those teams, don't you? But again, if you'd have probably said to me or anybody at the start of the season, again, we're top of the league, 3 points clear, would you have taken that in the position you're in now when we've had our most chaotic period? You probably would, especially with, we haven't got much experience in the team. We haven't been able to sign players and haven't needed to as of yet. So Birmingham, I keep talking about Birmingham last year or Wrexham because they spent money. They did it their own way, but we're doing it our way. And again, we all say it, don't we? We're going to have moments where our youngsters are going to have brilliant games, and then they're going to have some, let's say, below par games, but that's learning for their development. And, again, we've only got one left back. And I think that is probably the one thing I think at the minute we may be struggling with is finding a solution to not have a drop off in performance on the left-hand side, because I feel like Saturday when Bagan went off, it's not, it's not me trying to disrespect Ronan by anything, but it's in a natural position for him. And if sides know that you've only got one left back, when that left back goes off straight away, they're going to identify that. And I think on certain games, the drop off from, say, a Joe Bagan starting and then having to put a Perry NG or a Ronan Kapaki on that left-hand side, you can see the difference. And on Saturday, I felt like we kind of lost a little bit of impetus in the game when we needed a bit more, probably go forward when Leyton Orient were there to be taken. But if buts maybes, we're still on, was it 51 points? We're doing okay. And again, like I said, it's a chaotic season. I didn't see us in the old Division 2s and things like that, but go into these grounds, the facilities are horrible. That the weather's not going to be great and that the experience isn't going to be great. But you'll look back on these games at Lincoln in the fog, Wickham away where we had those chances and think, actually, the point at Wickham wasn't a bad point. The point at Leyton Orient, let's not forget Leyton Orient beat Bradford and Lincoln at their place. So it's not an easy place to go, and Saturday will not be an easy place to go. But sides who've gone there recently, Port Vale only lost 1-0 at Bradford. So they're not battering sides at their place. So it's going to be whoever, I think, like I said earlier, whoever applies themselves the best that they can do, I think wins the game. And it'll be a cagey affair. But like you said, you've got to deal with the atmosphere. You've got to manage the game accordingly. And like you said, if Nathan Trott's got to go down and tickle his toes for a few minutes just to stem the flow of, momentum, then you've got to do it.
100%, mate. 100%. I wanted to go, and we've mentioned missed chances a lot throughout when we were talking about the first game against Bradford and the recent games. So I want to get to that because you've got a really interesting stat. And I've just found a really, really interesting stat as well. So we'll have a get into that. Before we do that, I wanted to answer this question from Graham. He said, would you go 3 at the back and overload the midfield? I'll very quickly touch on it, and then I'll put it to you, mate. During the preseason, I know we trained 3 at the back at times when he was obviously having a look at the players and stuff like that. I have no idea. I would have to check, but I have no idea whether they have done that as a matter of course through the season or whether they haven't. If they haven't, then I wouldn't, because I don't think it's worth disrupting your whole system, because I think we're good enough to go and get a result at Bradford if we're at our best the way we play. As long as we, don't switch off at set pieces and we, keep the same sort of structure in the midfield that we have recently, I feel that we have the quality to go and win a football match. If they have trained it over the season, I would consider it, because I think, one, you can catch Bradford off maybe, by surprise, because we haven't played a different system all season. And 2, it might be a way to get Salic and Robinson up front together, or Salic and Isaac up front together, and then you can have that, like Leighton Orient did to us last week, have two up front who are pressing and harrying and forcing mistakes. But that would be my answer effectively. But what do you feel about that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, our history with, let's say, 3 or 5 at the back, however you want to describe it, say 3 centre-halves has not been pretty good. Again, we're led to believe Callum Chambers is injured, so that limits that. So then you go in with Gabe Osho, Lawler, and Fish. Now, you with the way we've been playing recently, I think we've been exposed because with our wing, like say our right back and left back naturally playing a bit higher. There's always gaps in behind, and I think at times we've been exposed. Like Wickham, second half, they found that gap, and I think it was Onyedinma Dimnya he was getting in behind, and it does cause that discomfort for us because then facing your own goal, anything can happen. And like you said, the only way you play it is if you're used to it, and it's not an unnatural thing for the players to play it, because otherwise you're just going to be chasing shadows and you'll be looking at each other and thinking, what on earth are we doing? Now, Jonathan's mentioned about Ashby there. I think he's either right back. He played quite a lot of games last year in the Championship, so he's quite an experienced player, in terms of this league now. I feel like they're going to press us high, and we have to find a way of getting in behind it. And that's where we talk about the speed of like Isaac Davis, if an Ollie Tanner, for example. Can we maybe look at Will Fish's diagonal ball to get in behind? And it's a tough one because you are going to leave yourself exposed somewhere. There is going to be an overlap somewhere, but you as a defending side have got to know where that is, and you've got to be one step ahead, haven't you? And you've got to try and limit the gaps. And we're very lucky we've got a keeper that's able to come out of his line and read the game, because that's always been something in the past we've been thinking, oh my goodness, if a ball's played over the top, the keeper's not going to come for it. But I wouldn't play it out of choice because of the familiarity. And I think when we change things up slightly in the past, historically, we haven't been very good.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I would also say that Brian Barry Murphy is a whole different type of coach and manager to some of the people we've had previously. And I think he's very talented. So maybe he'd be able to get the message across clear enough that they could do it. But I don't see the need for it, really. I actually would like to see us go with Isaac and Tanner on the wing from the start and actually try and hit them on the break with some real pace. And then bring on Willock and whoever, Ash Kean, or whoever, depending on who plays in the 10, obviously. Just on the left-back thing, I think it's definitely, we knew it was an issue anyway, but it's an even bigger issue now that Ronan's got an issue, because Perry's going to play right-back. So if Joel Bagan, who I would be amazed if he's not fatigued, can't play whatever needs to come off, you've only really got Ollie Tanner or a centre-back to go in there. And if Chambers is out, you haven't even got a centre-back because you need Osho to cover Fish and Lawler. So it does all of a sudden become very, very desperate. Now, I know Ollie Tanner's played there before for us in a bit of a bind, and he played at wing-back, and I think he can do it. And I think he's a very talented footballer. But if I'm being honest, I don't really want him at left-back. I want him up on the wing, putting crosses in the box for Salic, because he's the one who crosses differently to everyone else. So, look, I don't think I'm speaking out of pocket by saying we need to get the embargo thing, get the paperwork in, and get a left back in, get this goalkeeper Tyra in, and then have a look if we're going to do anything else before the window closes. But right, we have mentioned what feels like a lot of missed chances this season, and we perhaps haven't been as ruthless as we could have. You said a stat to me just before the game. Just tell the people what that stat was.
Well, as I'm looking at it now on FOTMob, so take me through. In terms of big chances missed now, obviously Salek is the person who's missed the most, but that's good because it's a good sign that he's making those opportunities. He's in the right places. But we are top of the big chances missed with 53 big opportunities missed. The second most team would be Bolton, who are on 40. So there's a difference of 13 opportunities. Now, that's not to say they're open goals or whatever it is. Different people have different contexts of what a big chance is missed. But you look at that and you could be very critical and you could say, if only a third of those big opportunities went in, we would be, we'd be up there. And then obviously to match that against the goals we score per game, we're second in goals per game at 1.7, joint with Huddersfield. So again, these are all good things, because in the past we've probably gone, we're not creating enough, we're not doing enough, we're not scoring enough goals. Well, I know people, games aren't won on stats, and I understand that, and I know all this XG and all these sports scientists and everything and analysts love those sort of things. But as what I'm reading here now, it's quite evident we are creating things. We are, just not finishing it. And I think that's probably been a frustration, or an area that Brian Barry Murphy has mentioned in a few of his post-game press conferences, where he said we've got to be better in the final third and kill off the opposition when we have those opportunities. So, like I said, if we can convert some of those chances, then we'll be flying.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said to you before we started, if we'd converted half of those big chances, we'd be way away at the top of the league. But so I've got up in front of me now, I've got the expected goals for the individuals. So I know Jonathan's just said as well, the XG for the team, we are 10 points above where we should be, which is mad, right? But the reason I like XG is because it's the best stat to give you information on the quality of chances. So like our Yusuf Salic's expected goals for the season is 15.4. So he's scored 12 goals. So he's, a little bit under where the stats say he should be, which probably means like he's missed a couple of big chances or whatever. But then once you go past that, and remember, he's the number 9, so he's going to get the majority of the chances. Ruben Colwell had an XG of 4, and he scored 3. Callum Robinson had an XG of 4 and has scored 5. Kean Ashford expected XG 3.2. He scored 3. Amari Kellyman's XG is under 2 and he scored 2 goals. Chris Willock's expected goals this season is 1.6 and he scored 4 goals. So he's out. Like a lot of our players are outscoring their XG. Isaac Davis's XG for the season is 0.6. He scored 3 goals. I guess what I'm saying is you have to look at the eye test as well as the stats and kind of marry it up between it. But actually, when you look at the stats for the quality of chances created by the team and for the individuals, we're in most cases doing better than the stats say that we should be, which is quite fascinating because I think, like we've discussed tonight and like, fans and people on the channel have discussed many times, it feels like if we were a bit more ruthless in front of goal, we'd probably have a bit of a cushion at the top of the league, which is, it's funny because in one way the stats do match up with that, like with the big chances created. But on the other hand, when you look at the individual XG of the players, they're all pretty, doing pretty well.
Yeah, and again, to flip the opposite side of that, where we've probably discussed about the defensive aspects and things like that, we're third best in the league with goals conceded per match. We've only conceded on average 1 a game. Stevenage obviously have the best at 0.9. Exeter have the second best. So Exeter have conceded 23, we've conceded 25, and Stevenage have conceded 20. So there is an element where we are doing a lot of things right. It's just fine. No, like I said, it's almost like having a lovely cake. You just need a few sprinkles on top of it, and I think that's where we're at. Is you're going to get a few issues with games where maybe a lack of concentration, maybe a bit of confidence, maybe a bit of, let's say, a bit of fitness issues or what have you. But if we can start, like you said, converting those chances and you're going 2-0 up instead of 1-0 up in a game, then all of a sudden the pressure swings and it goes onto the opposition. They start making more errors. They don't get as confident as, say, a Leyton Orient or a Wickham in the second half as they did against us because they managed to get a goal to draw and so on. And again, momentum's a massive thing in football, isn't it? And Lincoln have showed that with their home form, that when they score and they score and they score because the momentum is huge for them. We do that at home. I feel our home form is brilliant. It's momentum. It's just away from home, we're never going to have it easy. But the way we're stats. I know stats don't win games because we've always said that, and managers have said that. If we can just finish off the opportunities we're doing, we're creating, then we'll start, we'll start running away with things, and that's my hope. But again, it's having the options, isn't it? And it's credit to Salek. I mean, Salek's only turning 24 this week. And that's crazy to think. I know it's League One. I know people say, "Oh, but you should be doing better." But this is a player that didn't even probably know or how British football or the EFL was going to work when he came in January. And he continues to chuck himself into situations, and again, the angry run that he scored with the other day. The best part of that for me was the finish. Like, you look at that finish on Saturday, the only place he could have put that was in the postage stamp, and he walloped it in there. And I thought, you know what? That's everything you want from a striker, isn't it? It's the attitude, it's the endeavor, it's the fight. And I think if we continue to do that now going forward, I think, teams will struggle with us. And like I said, we've got players will be coming back as well from injury. Ollie Tanner's only going to get better now. He's getting more minutes. Hopefully Ruben is ahead of his progress, so we'll start to see him. Hopefully Kellerman's groin isn't too serious. And then all the jigsaw is back to being complete. And then Brian Barry Murphy has a selection headache and goes, boys, you've got to fight amongst yourself to be, in the team, because that's the good thing about this year is he set his bar so high. And like he said, the team isn't picked until the last training session. I need to see you playing all week and training well all week. Otherwise, you won't even travel. But it's going to be a busy 2 weeks, I think. I think we just got to make sure we're not stung by cheeky offers coming in or people trying to unsettle us with this embargo and things, and just concentrate on the football, I think.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we sold anyone. I really would. And the only thing which gives me confidence is in the summer when they said no one's for sale and no one was for sale. That's all I can base it on, because historically Cardiff City have got a price for everyone, and they sell at strange times and they sell for bad prices. But, I can only base it on the recent history. And in the summer they said no one's for sale and no one was for sale. They've said the same thing again. So I hope that that's the case. Now, on Yusuf Salic, mate, he's been here about a year. And he scored 22 goals in 54 games. Averages a 7.24 out of 10 rating. I think the thing which has impressed me the most this season is his ability to not react to the treatment, the refusal of referees to give free kicks against him. Defenders doubling up on him, defenders trying to wind him up. And at no point has he looked even, particularly angry. He just sort of laughs it off. You quite often see him speaking to referees at halftime, asking, why didn't you give this, or what should I do? What can I do? And I think that's quite clever. But I think he's a top striker, mate. I think he's also a bit of a dying breed in that he's an all-round number 9. And I don't think there's a great deal of them around. Incidentally, we played against one last week in Ballard, and I think there's not that many of them around who can press, who can link up, who can be good, good in the air, good with the ball at their feet, and score goals. And I think, for me, I think he's a very good player. And I thought last night that goal, last week I thought the goal was absolutely outrageous. I thought it was such a clever bit of skill. The fact that he doesn't stop, because it was clear they all thought it was going to be a free kick off the first contact, but he didn't even think about that. He just kept going. Absolutely sold Jack Simpson down the river and goes around the keeper. And like you said, the cleverness to lift it above all the players coming back onto the line was very good. And I'm hopeful now that will give him a bit of confidence, because I do think just maybe the last couple of games, there was a couple of headers where I think he will have felt that he should have done better. Even though they were tough headers, there was one that was really high and he kind of he got underneath it and headed it over. But I really do believe that if he goes on a bit of a scoring run now for a few games, he's very difficult to stop when he's confident. But yeah, he's impressed me massively. Just on the centre backs, mate, I wanted just to flip to the other end of the pitch. Who are you starting on the weekend? Would you go, because Gabe Osho's been all right the last couple of away games, and I say he's been all right because I don't think he's been amazing, but I think defensively he's been very good physically, clearances, blocks, etc. He does make me nervous with his distribution, even though I know people were trying to shift a bit of blame onto him, for the goal. I actually, I thought he was more on Trot than Osho. The one thing you could say with it is perhaps Osho should know him, and put it on his left foot. But how many times have we seen Trot just side foot it with his right foot out to Perry NG? He tried to do that cheeky little thing where he, flips it back onto his left foot and he got caught. But I didn't think that was on Osho, I got to be fair. And I thought he made some great blocks, actually. But Fish and Lawler's the way to go, in it, surely.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, I suppose, it's some stuff, but away from home, maybe Dylan Lawler's, let's say his game is more suited to home games, where he's driving from the back and so on. But you're never going to develop, I suppose, and learn if you're not playing consistently in those environments. I think Fish is brilliant with Lawler because they're both able to distribute the ball. And I think that's something that we may need, those diagonal passes, that confidence on the ball. Like you said, if Trot's going to be able to look out to who he can set the ball out to centrally, well, one of them's going to be there and they're going to be confident to give the ball out. Now, I think Osho played okay. It's one of those things with Osho, isn't it? He's trying to do a lot of things, and sometimes you just think Gabe just kind of rein it in a little bit, do the basics, and then build your confidence that way. I think Fish and Lawler probably will get the nod. I think Fish on Saturday was a bit, let's say, a bit sporadic at times. I think some of his passing wasn't as at the high standard that he's made this season. But again, you take that, you brush it away and go, okay, that was just that last game. Two different strikers you'll be up against. Now, with the Chambers injury, I would have probably said Chambers in there with Fish. Yeah. But because Chambers is injured, I think I'm going to go Lawler and Fish.
So just on Osho's game against Leyton Orient, he had 7.4 out of 10 on FootMob, but his stats are really interesting. Defensively, he had 2 tackles, 10 clearances, 6 headed clearances, 1 interception and 5 recoveries. Didn't get dribbled past once, won 2 out of 3 ground duels and 3 out of 4 aerial duels, and only committed 1 foul, which is a pretty impressive performance, actually, defensively. And as I said, I thought he did pretty well defensively. But then actually, when you look at his stats in possession, they're also pretty good for that game. So maybe it's more of an anxiety thing from a fan perspective because of the errors that he made earlier in the season, as opposed to what he's doing now, if that makes sense. Because he had 95% passing accuracy, didn't give the ball away, had plenty of defensive contributions, didn't make any mistakes. So, maybe away from home, the manager will go with him. I always tend to think, I think Will Fish's best performances have been alongside Dylan Lawler. For whatever reason, they seem to just complement each other very well. And so.
I think it'd be tough though, because again, we are young, we are, like you said, is if I was the opposition manager and you look at the Cardiff City team and you've got an experience, sort of a nucleus of experienced players, you'd be saying, right, stand up against, Dylan Lawler, stand up against, let's say if Ronan was playing, and see if they can sort of deal with you. And I think for the vast majority of this season, Dylan Lawler has been brilliant. You look at how he was the first game, the baptism of fire against Peterborough at times. And then how he applied himself then after Port Vale away. He's done nothing but learn, and he wants to learn, which is brilliant. And I think, Gabe Osho, there is a very good player in there. But like you said, maybe that initial error, the game where he made those mistakes, then he got injured. He hasn't been able to build any sort of momentum and confidence, I feel, to solidify himself more than anything, but to also then to gain that sort of that trust and that faith. Because like you said, sometimes when he's on the ball, it's almost like that, oh my goodness, sort of moment. But he's trying. It's not for a want of trying or desire. He really does. And he is confident on the ball. Sometimes you think, oh my goodness, where's he going? but somehow he manages to get himself out of a situation. And listen, I hope when he plays that he does something very, very telling, and it just builds those confidence up, because, like you said, that we're only halfway through the season. We're going to need Gabe Osho to come in for a few games. We're going to need all the squad to have key contributions. And if some players aren't as confident as what they could be, then it's not ideal when you want them to be coming in and making an instant positive impact.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Like, Chambers' experience, you'd have him in there probably for this game. But, Osho's experienced as well. And but then I suppose from you, like, you are right in that if, Graham Alexander will probably say, give Lawler a bit of a nudge, see how he is. But then equally, if Osho's in the team, they'll probably say, close him down when he's got the ball, see if he's got a mistake in him, see if he does make a mistake early on when he's a bit nervous. So it's not ideal, but I think we got 4 very good centre-backs. I do think there's a real player in Osho. I just think he had a difficult start to his Cardiff career. But I also think if all 4 are fit, I'd probably go with one of the, a combination of the other 3 first. But that's no disrespect on him. Joel Bagan has got to play because that's the way left backs go at this point. And, I think Perry would have played anyway at right back for this particular game. Although, I think he would have played. I do think Ronan's due a game, but maybe that'll come against Stockport if he's fit at home next week. Would you go Wintle and Robertson, mate, or would you look at like a Turnbull or someone in there?
No, I think Wintle and Robertson. I think when they're on it, them two, they're brilliant, because Wintle just literally destroys whatever's in front of him, doesn't he? Does the dirty work and whatever, the groundwork, and then kind of Robertson then is able to feed off those sort of knockdowns and breakups in play, and he's able to then kind of bring people into play like the wingers. I like those two as a rotation area because I think they get each other. Like I said, the number 10 area now is going to be huge if we do play with a 10 on Saturday, because there needs to be someone who's able to get up and down the pitch to support, both in between Robertson and Salah. But again, it's one of those things, isn't it? Is playing the right people. And I think when we've got a fully fit squad, our wing backs are electric, because then it allows our 6, 8, and and the 10s to push up higher, and then we're already in their half. At Wickham second half, when we had Ronan on the left and Thing on the right, Perry on the left, Ronan on the right, we didn't have that, because ultimately sides were able to nullify us and say, well, Perry's not a natural left footer, and they were able to double off him. So we didn't have that output, and that's one thing, like you said there, and it's we're harping on about it a little bit, but it just goes to highlight the importance of having a left footer, because when Joe Bagan plays and he's fully fit and he's at it, that ball down the left hand side that he's able to whip and bring the Willock or an Ollie Tanner into play, it's unbelievable. But you can see the drop off then when you don't have a natural left footer on that side, and we just got to have a lot of intensity. I think a lot of intensity. We've got to be at it. We've got to be winning the headers. We've got to be, if there's 50-50s, straight in there. You're not going in 25-75. You're going in bangs, taking man and ball, and I think we've got to be at it for the 96, 97 minutes, haven't we?
Yeah, I think ultimately with the left back thing, it changes the angles, doesn't it? Where you've got a right footer in there, they're always going to look to cut inside, and they'll try and face inside as well, so they can have it on their right foot. Whereas Joel gets it and he opens up his body and it can go up the line, it can go, across field or whatever. So, look, we all know it's an issue. It's one of them, and actually that sort of takes me into the question that someone just asked then about. Who was it? There. Paul says about it's Friday tomorrow. Will we have news about this embargo? Honestly, mate, I don't think we'll get any movement on it until Cardiff are ready to make a signing. As soon as we're ready to make a signing, they'll sort it, and it'll all kind of be done at the same time. There's no massive rush for it. It's not like it's going to cause us like a big, huge fine or point deduction or anything like that. It's a paperwork issue that had another element to it as well, which will be sorted when it's sorted. If we wanted to sign someone tomorrow, Paul, then it'll be sorted tomorrow and it'll be lifted. It's not a drama. Now, on the other hand, it's not a good look either. I will give you that, especially when it's happened several times over the last few years. But yeah, it's nothing to be concerned about in terms of long term or issues. But yeah, I give you, it's not a great look. Let's finish on this then, James. Obviously, you're going away Saturday. What do you think the score will be? And if you had to give one Cardiff player to watch, because you think they're going to have a big part to play, who would it be?
I'll go with Sienna's favourite score, 2-1. I think we'll win 2-1, being very optimistic. I think it's going to be an open game. Ollie Tanner. And the reason why I think that is, I think, I think he's just chomping at the bit, isn't he? And I think you can see there's this eagerness, this sort of hunger to make up for the lost time that he's had because he had the new contract and that unfortunate injury that he suffered up in Wimbledon. I think he will have a massive part to play, and we know when Ollie Tanner's firing, there's not many sort of defenders that probably can live up with him. So Ollie Tanner, I think, will have a big impact, and I think we'll win 2-1.
I like that. Yeah, I agree with you on Tanner. If you didn't see my video earlier in the week on Ollie Tanner, then go check it out. We also had a video out earlier where we looked at the first game and addressed sort of some of the issues and how Cardiff can make sure that the same mistakes don't happen again. I'm actually quietly positive about Saturday. I think it's going to be a difficult game. I think the injuries that we've got are probably not ideal because, like we just said, I think Chambers would have played and a few others, but Kellyman I think would have played as well. But I think the way I look at it is, look, if they're out, whoever's out, if anyone's out, if they're all out, or a lot of them are out, it's an opportunity for someone else. If Alex Robertson's out, it's an opportunity for David Turnbull. If Joel Colwell's out, it's an opportunity for David Turnbull or whoever. There's an opportunity there for someone to do what the likes of Perry NG, the likes of Chris Willock, the likes of Callum Chambers have done throughout the season, where they've been out at the starting 11, and then when they've had their chance, they've taken it, and then you got to earn your spot back. I think a lot of, or certainly we were discussing the other week, if Ruben came back last week before Kellyman got injured, he'd have had to earn his spot back in that number 10 because Kellyman's been impressive. So that's what you want. You want competition for places. I'm not going to give my prediction for score or anything like that because I'll save that for the preview videos, which are dropping over tomorrow. We'll have the preview in the lunchtime. We'll have the tactical showdown, BBM versus Alexander 2 tomorrow night. And then Saturday lunchtime, Saturday morning at about 9 o'clock, it'll be 3 big questions on a match day. But Jamie, as always, mate, it's a pleasure discussing Cardiff City matters with you.
Yep.
Where can the people find you on social media and all that jazz?
Just in there on X. That's the username on X, and then they'll probably come up on the usual Instagram or the old TikToks as my name anyway. So yeah, they'd probably see it anyway. But yeah, listen, let's hope we continue to keep getting points. And listen, it's nice being at the top, isn't it? So as long as we can keep going, I'm sure come what may, we'll all be celebrating in Mansfield in our fancy dresses.
Indeed. And I'll tell you something else, mate, right, just to finish, is, everyone's saying promotion, and I 100% agree. I want to win the league, mate. I want to lift the trophy and win the league. I also want my son to experience that as well. So, I don't want to finish second and, we get promoted. I want to win the league and make a statement. And I believe that we got the quality to do so. I believe we got the manager to do so. But I would like maybe to see them give him support now in the next couple of weeks if he asks for it. Like, he might not, but if he does, let's make sure we back him. But apart from that, mate, all good. Hopefully next Thursday we'll be back together, but we'll see how your work schedule is and all that malarkey. But thank you very much, mate. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in, and we'll be back tomorrow, starting all the pre-match videos and previews and all that good stuff. Thank you very much. Nostar.
Rascal Beats.
For your Caesar. Cardiff City, ride with me for your Caesar.
Okay.